The Full Melt Show is intended for a mature audience. It contains adult themes, adult content, and sometimes adult language. Listener discretion is advised.
It's the Full Melt Show.
A controversial bill to legalize recreational marijuana is making its way right now through the Vermont state legislature.
The state Senate approved a bill that would allow anyone older than 21 to buy and carry pot. It's just one major step away from going to the governor's desk.
And tonight, there's a growing fear the effects of the law won't stop at the border.
We ask the Secretary to please call the roll.
Politicians are inching closer to a move that would allow drinking-age adults to buy and use Vermont-grown marijuana throughout the state, a move championed by Governor Peter Shumlin.
This is a bill where I believe logic will lead it to the governor's desk.
The version of the bill going to the House doesn't allow people to grow their own weed, but they could carry as much as an ounce on them without any trouble.
It's going to create a whole host of problems.
It's a controversial bill critics say leads to too many questions.
There's all sorts of issues that are going to present themselves. And when we legalize marijuana, if that's the case, we're going to have even more issues to deal with.
This push to legalize pot doesn't just affect Vermonters. The people who visit the state would also be allowed to take part. It's raising some red flags on the other side of the border, though, where recreational marijuana is still illegal. What does that mean for you?
I think it's going to be a nightmare. I really do.
Chief George Bell runs the Cambridge-Greenwich Police Department, a stone's throw from the state line. He says his officers are already busy dealing with marijuana busts. What would this do?
Just going to triple it. Just going to triple it, easily. With it being so close and so readily available and legal in a neighboring state. I don't think anybody in law enforcement at this point knows how they're going to deal with this if it does go in Vermont like this.
Bell says he'll treat any possession as criminal unless the marijuana has been prescribed here in New York. But he's still worried New Yorkers will try to bring it back over the border.
And they do it now. Cigarettes are cheaper in Vermont. Alcohol is cheaper in Vermont because of the tax. Where do you think they're going to go to get their marijuana now? They're going to run to Vermont. It's just going to go, it's going to be crazy.
And, you know, the debate goes far beyond the state of Vermont. Right now, attorneys general in Nebraska and Oklahoma have a case against Colorado being considered in the Supreme Court. Both states claim Colorado's marijuana industry is creating what they call a criminal enterprise they believe is harming the states around it. Marijuana bill in Vermont, by the way, still awaiting approval in the state's House of Representatives. They're expected to take up the measure in March.
Are you high? What are you talking about?
The Full Melt.
The Full Melt Show. A marijuana discussion about news, culture, politics, and lifestyle. TheFullMelt.com. Toll free. 844-420-TALK. 844-420-TALK.
Rocking and rolling on the air another day in the blustery winter of 2016. You've got the Full Melt Show with Steve Green. I'm your host. Today we're talking about the same thing we talk about almost every program, the politics of cannabis. You know why? Because we're just swarming in it, aren't we? I mean, aren't we just really swimming through this stuff? I never thought, honestly, when I started this program some 6 years ago, that we would ever have so much to talk about. I never fathomed, I guess I didn't look into it because I thought if I thought about it long enough, I could have pondered the idea that there would be so much turmoil happening when the crest of the hill is being rounded. And let's face it, that's what's happening right now. We're rounding the crest on that hill, soldiers and tail. And when I talk about this, using this analogy, all these soldiers are the basically activists, and what creates an activist, really? What makes you look? I don't make anything doing this radio program. Honestly, there's nothing that comes into my pocket. If anything, I spend money on this radio program. Now, what would motivate me to do that? I mean, there's certainly no financial motivation, right? And I don't consider myself an activist. An activist literally goes out in the public, and I guess the only time I've ever done anything in an activist nature, I suppose, is to collect signatures for Am I Legalized here in Michigan. In fact, I'm going to do this tomorrow at the Breslin Center when Bernie Sanders comes to town. I doubly volunteered. See, I double dipped as a volunteer, which is what I'm doing this radio program. I'm going out there to volunteer for the Bernie Sanders camp, so I'm going to help with that organized event. And at the same time, I'm volunteering with MI Legalize to run and collect signatures down that line. Hopefully, maybe I'll be able to talk the Sanders camp into letting us put some tables, do some tabling inside the Breslin Center. If I'm able to accomplish that, boy, we'll have married two awesome camps together in harmony. And I think this is the kind of thing that Senator Sanders is looking to accomplish. Correct me if I'm wrong. We'll see what happens. There's Secret Service detail, and there are some things that are probably, from a security standpoint, outside of his camp's control. And I didn't ask them about this in advance. I didn't say, hey, can we go there and do that? I'm hoping that they'll let us put up at least one table inside the building somewhere where people are coming by, where we can attract. I'd like to get, I'm sure we can get a couple thousand signatures there. I mean, there were 11,000 people, according to my understanding, when Sanders came to Ann Arbor. The line was over 1.5 miles long. They were out there for hours waiting to get in because it's first come, first serve. This is an awesome opportunity to shake hands and kiss babies, not just for, the Sanders camp, because they've already done enough handshaking and baby kissing to get people to line up and stand in the cold waiting to get inside. But in East Lansing, I believe it's going to be much the same way, and maybe even a little bit bigger because, I don't know. It's hard to anticipate. But I expect that it will be somewhat the same in way of waiting capacity. The number of people standing in line waiting to get inside. It's certainly going to be a long time because doors open at 4 o'clock. Sanders doesn't start speaking until 7. That's 3 hours away. So I hope you brought, they don't allow you to bring much in with you, see? Maybe, it's been a long time since I've been to the Breslin Center, but I'm assuming that the Breslin Center may have concessions open because there's going to be people standing around in that building for 3 hours before the presidential candidate is, or at least he's not even a presidential candidate yet. I guess technically he is a presidential. He's the Democratic nominee candidate right now, running as a presidential candidate. In order to, I think, be fully vested as a presidential candidate, you have to have won one of the two parties' nominations, and that's what this election's about, right? Not trying to give people a course in civics. But that's what's happening. And today's Super Tuesday. It's the first big rollout of what states think about these candidates. And I'm excited to see what happens. I think a lot of people have written Senator Sanders off already. I'm not ready to do that. I'm not ready to do that until Senator Sanders is ready to do that. This is his campaign, not ours. He's running this in our favor. There's no question. But in the long run, I don't think Senator Sanders has been very clear about saying, I don't want to, I'm not throwing in the hat until after we get past California. I'm not sure when California votes. I think is it in March sometime or April? I don't remember. I have to look it up now. See, I do this frequently on the show. I just got to look it up. Sometimes I don't always have the answer to a question. So a lot of times it's easier just to look it up. Hold on a second. So when is the California election? I need to know now because I've made myself curious. When do I throw in the towel if things start going downhill? And if I'm right now, the answer to that question is when the California election happens. Primary. Okay, here we go. It is January 20th, February 17th. Announced the selected presidential candidates. The Democratic Party is. So that's for announcements. Oh, good Lord. Primary election is June 7th. Wow, that's a long ways away, isn't it? And this is the same mark. Actually, if you look at things historically, it's after probably that California election when that's the line that's currently been drawn for. We're not going to, at the Senate level, confirm any more Supreme Court nominees. That's where the line is currently drawn. There are people that want to point to that line, especially on the Republican side, because right now they want to pull that line back to early January or mid-January. That's a full 6 months. That's a big leap of faith to make over the idea that there's a presidential race underway. Well, yeah, the presidential race started a year ago. Did you want to say Obama didn't have the right to nominate a Supreme Court nominee candidate then? The answer to that question is no. And I think the line is firmly in June because it's after people have already started to select their primary candidates and they're about to select a new president. And, once you get that close to the election, I suppose that you might want to lean in the direction of, hey, let's wait until after the election and let the new president make the call. Personally, if you're a strict constitutionalist, which Republicans are trying to nominate a person who wants to fill the Supreme Court from a strict constitutionalist standpoint. Just read the law black and white. Don't put anything into it. Don't lean it anywhere. Don't read anything into it. That's what a strict constitutionalist is. And if you were to read the Constitution as it is now and interpret it strictly, the answer to the question wouldn't be let's wait until after the presidential election to confirm a nomination or to hold a vote on the question. The answer is the president nominates during his term, Senate confirms during his term. I mean, at least hold the vote. You don't have to it doesn't say you have to confirm. You have to advise and consent. To consent means you're giving the advice of the Senate that we either do or do not agree with you in the nomination of this candidate. You have to at least hold a vote, especially on a candidate that may perhaps already fit all the qualifications. Maybe the Senate's already confirmed this person for high public office as a judge. How could you argue with them then? There's a lot of weight in this. And that piece at the beginning of the show there about states conflicting nearby, particularly New York State, with the standpoint of Vermont taking the position of legalization for adults, responsible adult use. Oh, the people in New York are like, that was from Channel 6 in Albany, a CBS station. CBS 6, I believe. Or 6 CBS, however they say it. This question is before the Supreme Court, as they mentioned in that piece. And if you don't pay attention to that, the whole ball of wax could come unraveled or start getting melted, so to speak. Because it's that question with the Supreme Court that's going to lead the way for, hey, are we going to be able to legalize in this country? Or we have to fall back to prohibitionist ways because the Supreme Court said, no, the states around surrounding states got a right to protect themselves against this horrible crime. Yet they're tied 4-4 on the Supreme Court without a breaking tie from another judge.
You're getting the full melt.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
RootMetrics, in the nation's largest independent study, tested wireless performance across the country. Verizon won big with 153 state wins. AT&T got 38, Sprint got 2, and T-Mobile got 0. Verizon also won first in the U.S. for data, call, speed, and reliability. AT&T got text. Stuck on an average network? Join Verizon, and we'll cover your cost to switch.
It's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571.
What's up with these things, Victor?
We decided to give ourselves stickers for each feature we release. We read about 10,000 suggestions a week to create features that, as traders, we'd want to use.
10,000 suggestions? Who reads all of those?
He does.
For all the confidence you need, TD Ameritrade. You got this.
Introducing Sacred Elements, a place for natural and alternative healing for the mind, body, and soul. Sacred Elements. It's one place, all solutions.
Registered, licensed, certified, ordained.
Sacred Elements.
Massage, hypnosis, Reiki.
Sacred Elements.
Raindrop, aroma and color therapy, body detox, ministry, life coaching, weight and nutrition counseling.
Sacred Elements. Next to the Sweet Leaf, 400 South Door Highway, Flint.
11 to 7 daily, closed Sunday.
Call 810-259-2570. It's the Full Melt Radio Show.
Radio Show.
You can get us here Monday through Friday from 7 until 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. It's always Eastern Time. If you want to participate in the program, it's easy to call. We got a toll-free number for you. We spend a lot of money and effort to make that available to you. 844-420-TALK. What's the sense of doing a live radio show unless you got people calling in to respond to what you're talking about? And there's a lot to talk about. You think it's crazy just with Vermont arguing that the neighboring states, or neighboring states rather of Vermont, arguing that everybody's going to come across the border now and go to Vermont and bring their weed back here to New York State. It's not just New York that's complaining about this, or neighboring states of Vermont. It's also you got the Colorado question. The neighboring states of Colorado have brought this action before the Supreme Court. And don't quote me on it because I haven't read the detail on it. But it's my understanding that the Supreme Court has postponed hearing that case. And I imagine their postponement will end after a new judge has been announced, after one has been confirmed. And when that happens, I think, if you ask me, it should be now. And I think if I was on the other party's side, I would say the same. Honestly, I think if you're going, you can only play the game so many ways. You can't keep moving the goalpost. If the goalpost is the end, look, the Constitution says the goalpost for the president on the nomination of a Supreme Court candidate is during his term. And one could read into it, and this is why they've moved that goalpost back a little bit from what, might be a strict reading, is that the Senate has to advise and consent. Now, the president theoretically could nominate some guy on Monday, on Tuesday and Wednesday have hearings about the thing, and then, Thursday and Friday have some confirmation come through, have a vote held. And then he leaves office. I mean, theoretically, this could all be done. In a world where I think the founding fathers had designed this government, had set up this republic. It's a democratic republic is what it is. It's not a democracy. That's different than a democratic republic. We're a republic in this country. One that we're going to have a hard time holding together if we don't get our shit together. And part of getting our shit together is taking money out of politics because it corrupts the entire system. A delicately balanced, carefully checked and balanced system. And if you start moving pieces from one center of power to another, because there's three parts of government. You got the executive branch, you got the legislative branch, and you got the judicial branch. If you start moving around, then they're balanced. They're all balanced, and they all have autocracy, I think. That's the word. Is that the word I want to use? I think it was they all have their own little domain. One can't deny the other. Even two of the others can't deny one. I mean, they're all carefully, cleverly balancing power in this country, the centralization of power in this country. Because when power becomes too centralized, you've got a China on your hands, you've got a Russia on your hands. or what, what would be the old Soviet Union, which really kind of is reforming at some point. I mean, these are all separate countries, but if you got Vladimir Putin running around the Soviet republics, the former Soviet republics, as if they were still states of that union, remember that union broke up, it dissolved. Vladimir Putin is the president of Russia. He's not the president of anything else over there. But he acts this way. He's claiming it by action. The Ukraine, etc., all of these other territories. And many of these territories are not very well heeled to take action on their own. Remember, it's Russia, Mother Russia, that had all the money and the bargaining chips. And they said where military assets went and how those funds got spent. Dragging away from the subject here a little bit. In the long run, when you talk about this election cycle and what's going on with the Supreme Court here, it's going to have a huge effect. And I think this is why a very tempered Supreme Court, evenly divided on this and knowing so in advance, wants to make sure that there is a tie-breaking justice in place before they even hear this case, because it will shape jurisprudence in this space for some time to come. And I think that's a good thing. But it's not just this argument. I mean, you're not just... Here's another little taste of what's going on. Now, this is from Louisiana. Check this out.
Of marijuana across Louisiana.
KSLA News 12's Jacob Bradford is breaking down what that could mean for the state. He's in the lobby with more. Jacob, good morning.
Good morning, Sharice and Adria. I'm sitting next to Dr. Rob Blackstock. He's the assistant dean over business at the Louisiana Tech, and he's also an economist. So I first want to talk about the alcohol and marijuana sales. So there's some concerns that they would actually compete and take away from each other, but it's actually a different story.
Well, currently, the legislature, we've heard, may be considering making marijuana legal in the state of Louisiana in order to tax it. One of the concerns, as you've said, is what will happen to alcohol sales. Most of us would think...
All right, wait a minute. I'm just going to interrupt this for a second. So, Louisiana, remember, good old Louisiana is a red state, right? It's one of the Bible thumper states. It's part of the Southern Bible Belt. Louisiana is now fully considering, openly, at the legislative level even, the legalization of marijuana. I'll digress.
That they're substitutes. If people switch to marijuana, they're drinking less alcohol. I went and looked at Colorado tax revenues over the last 4 years, and it turns out that in Colorado, since they legalized marijuana, tax revenues on alcohol have increased every year. So it would seem, actually, the two are complements.
So that would be something that the lawmakers would want to take into consideration.
Absolutely.
All right, so the other thing that I wanted to ask you about is street crime. You said in the short term it might actually increase because those drug dealers might need to branch out a little bit into other drugs.
Okay, so as we said earlier, one of the problems with making marijuana legal in Louisiana is it's still illegal at the federal level. Commercial banks won't touch the money because they're afraid if they take these deposits.
All right, so now I got to stop it again, because now we got the same argument, the same old argument that you get. I mean, you've gotten past the argument that this is acceptable for adult use. It's not a dangerous thing. I mean, it's got potential for danger, but by itself, in and of itself, it's not dangerous, and adults should be able to use this, and it's a terrible waste of public resources, etc. You've gotten past that hump, that argument. You've gotten past the soccer moms and the threatening that kids are going to all end up with lower IQs and they're going to fail out of school and they're never going to make anything of their lives and they're going to end up on disability, Social Security, and they're going to end up a crack addict or some heroin whore. And now you move on to the next argument, and the next blockade in place in the path to legalization is this argument that it's still illegal at the federal level. And look at all the problems that exist. You know, if you're going to do some commerce in this space, look at Colorado. They got problems with cash. It's a very small problem considering that, you're wasting a whole hell of a lot of money putting your own citizens in jail.
That's from marijuana dispensaries. The feds will just come in and seize it. So in Colorado, these marijuana dispensaries are a cash-only business. They only accept cash for their product, but they have to pay all their bills in cash. Their employees' salaries, the electric bill, the rent, all in cash. And they can't deposit the leftover. It's in a safe. So that creates a couple of problems. Number one, if we're doing this to tax, it's really easy to hide cash from the tax man. And the second problem is, if you've got cash laying around, you're going to be robbed. And yes, robbery against these dispensaries has increased significantly. But that's not the only problem. As you mentioned, what's going to happen to street crime? Common belief is if we make marijuana legal, then street crime is going to fall. And in the long run, that's correct. But in the short run, you've got these people who make their living supplying an illegal product.
Okay, wait a minute. Here it comes. Here it comes. Here's going to say it.
And if it's suddenly legal, what are they going to do? Go and get a job at Walmart? No, they're going to start looking for other ways to make a living. And they're either going to continue to sell illegally because their product won't be taxed, or they're going to branch out into other drugs. And the people supplying those other drugs are not going to take kindly to that, and there's going to be some competition, that is violence in the streets.
Oh, see, there it is. There, he said it right there. We can't do this because, here's all the reasons. And when you flutter down the reasons, you get to the spot in the deck where he's like, oh, wait a minute. You're going to start, in the long term, you're right, you're going to save a lot of violence in the streets. You're going to save a lot of blood spilt over drugs. You're right. Crime will go down when you legalize marijuana. And the biggest reason, actually, for that statistic, you want to know the biggest reason for that statistic? It's because marijuana is no longer freaking illegal. That's why. Crime literally goes down because you stopped one of the crimes from being a crime. But the truth of the matter is, you're no longer sending that money into other countries and propping up an illegal regime, or it's just a violent regime who's hell-bent on getting drugs across the border at all costs. And if that means you can't pay off the guy, you kill him and let somebody else take his place who you can pay off. Hey, you know that guy that was in office before you, Mr. Benitez? He didn't survive his office, did he? He didn't want to make any concessions. He didn't want to allow us to influence him. So maybe you might want to rethink how he did what he did and look at how you might do what you want to do. You see, this is how corruption works. If the powers that be don't bend, you kill them, and then you wait for somebody to take their place who you can control because they've got that threat directly in front of them now. There's blood spilt in his own office by the predecessor of the office. This doesn't happen when you take control of the market. So he says he agrees with you. The crime rate will go down, and primarily, again, like I said, because cannabis possession and use is no longer illegal, growth, all that stuff. But we're going to cause another problem that we can't handle, that we don't want to deal with, because it's purely speculation because we haven't ever done this in history. Look, when they legalized cannabis in Colorado, crime didn't go up there, did it? It went down. So he wants to use one example. Hey, look at Colorado. They got all this cash on hand, and they got to do all their business in cash. Somebody's going to get robbed. And anytime, he's right about that a little bit. Anytime you're an easy target for cash, they're going to come and try and take it if they can. So this is why they have armed security and all these. They've got safes that you can't get into without a lot of work. And money's moved around in anonymous ways. They change things up, so there's no routine. You can't be cased. There are ways to deal with this. They aren't optimum ways, but there are ways to minimize it. And again, Colorado hasn't erupted into any. You don't see cocaine and meth and heroin sales going up in Colorado. You don't see any of that. But he likes to hold out that money example, doesn't he? I mean, it just drives me insane, some of the arguments about, hey, we can't legalize here. And they didn't even whip out the religious argument yet. Let's wait and see if he does that.
Or they're going to start robbing the dispensaries because, hey, that money's just sitting there. Or something else we hadn't even thought of.
All right. So what do you think? Do you think lawmakers are actually going to...
Hold up. Something else we haven't even thought of. Look, I'm going to leave it open-ended, ... etc. And stuff. It drives me insane when I have a conversation with somebody and every sentence ends in stuff because they don't know how to finish it. Or whatever they were trying to say, they don't feel secure enough in being stated. So it ends in stuff. So what'd you do today? Oh, I cleaned up and stuff. Well, how did that go? Well, it went pretty well and stuff. I mean, this is what this guy is saying. Things could go really bad and stuff. The argument is just a farce. Here we go.
And the people supplying those other drugs are not going to take kindly to that, and there's going to be some competition that is violence in the streets, or they're going to start robbing the dispensaries because, hey, that money's just sitting there, or something else we hadn't even thought of.
All right, so what do you think? Do you think lawmakers are actually going to let marijuana be legal? How do you think this is going to go?
I can't prognosticate what the legislature would do, nor would I dare to. Should they? Absolutely. Marijuana is going to be legal nationwide. DARE, the program that many people grew up with in this country, has removed marijuana as a gateway drug on their list of gateway drugs.
And, you know, I've had this argument already on Facebook. By the way, DARE has gone back. They've backtracked and said, look, just because we changed the website around and it doesn't have that up on the front anymore, it doesn't mean that we're still against marijuana. It's still dangerous to kids. They're still out telling kids actively in schools that marijuana is going to hurt you. It's going to prevent you from doing. They're still out spreading the evil weed word, the prohibition. Oh, it's going to be that crazy wacky.
The tide has turned. It will be legal. The question is, should we be at the forefront? Should we be the first in the Deep South to do this and get those extra taxes? Or should we do it after everyone else has and just have the nickels trickle in?
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. Blackstock. Of course, a very interesting interview that I'm sure a lot of you might be interested in. We'll just have to see how this goes as the special session wraps up in its final week. Guys?
Oh, that guy's a really inexperienced reporter. That guy is so wet behind the ears, I can't stand it. He's so wet behind the ears, it's like he's Dumbo and he just got done swimming. All right, so here's where we're at on this. You got the first red state actively considering in their new legislative session legalizing marijuana. I think that's an amazing statement in today's day and age. It's certainly one that's been anticipated. You got other people, you got other red states doing the marijuana oil thing for medicine only, and only for those poor kids we talk about because we can't get them high. God forbid we should get a kid high because he's going to die if we don't. Oh, it makes me so angry. How does this not make your blood boil? I keep making this statement. I find myself repeating this a lot, but I can't say it enough. If you've got a kid, and right now he's got intractable epilepsy. He or she's having epileptic seizure fits 300, 400, 500 times a day. They're completely immobilized by this seizure activity. Do you think they're giving them something that's not getting them high as a pharmaceutical answer to this question that's not effective? Absolutely, they're getting that kid high. They're getting him so high, hoping that they'll calm the brain down so those seizures don't happen when marijuana does it without getting you high. But who cares if it does? For crying out loud, the kid stops having seizures.
You're getting the full melt.
I've seen things no man should bear, and those that every man should dare. From the beaches of Normandy to the far reaches of the earth. In my life, I have lived millions of lives. I've outrun robots and danced with dinosaurs. I've faced the faces of fear and fortitude and witnessed great beauty in the making. I've kept the company of kings and queens, but I'm no royalty or saint. I've traveled, trekked, wandered, and roamed, only to find myself right where I belong.
Jeep. See your authorized Jeep retailer for details on how you can become a Jeep owner.
We ask people to tell us something that happened in their past and something that might happen in their future. The good things were put on yellow magnets and the bad ones on blue. The results show the past was a pretty even mix of good and bad, yet the future was almost all good things. Now that you've seen the results of this experiment, what does it mean to you?
We all want to think about positive stuff.
Realistically, there will be downtimes.
It's great to think optimistically, but let's plan for whatever the future might bring.
Prudential, bring your challenges.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
It's the Full Melt Radio Show. Damn tootin' it is, and we're proud of it. Helping medical cannabis patients around the country, helping guide policy reform. We're here to do that every single day until this issue gets fixed, and then we'll be around helping to shape probably the recreational market, what it means, and explain it to people. There's so much to learn in the world of the wacky world of cannabis. It's a kaleidoscope of all these various and sundry differences. Notable, distinct, tasty, flavorful, or aromatic differences. And that's just from the outside. When you start inspecting this subject from the inside, it's also an endless understanding that you start to begin to learn as you go along. Everything from, this is one of the most fascinating plants on the face of the planet. It really, truly is. Plants do strange things. The plant of the animal kingdom are way different from one another. And I think plants particularly are extremely misunderstood. We understand a lot about animal biology because it's reflexive, it's responsive. It does so in an instant way. It's electrical, chemical. And you've got the same stuff going on in the plant world, but it's not as visual. It's not as reactive, unless you're talking about something like a Venus flytrap, where there are actually something that would replicate nervous system in a plant. And so you've got the Venus flytrap, and the inside is got triggers on it that will set off the Venus flytrap shutting its cage, and thereby trapping the bug to be digested by that tasty inner pink stuff. Because the tasty inner pink stuff is really digestive juices from the plant, this carnivorous plant. I mean, you think about the animal world, and you've got vegetarians, you've got or herbivores. It's really considered an herbivore, I guess, if you're a vegetarian, or designed to be an herbivore. You're only eating vegetable matter. You've got carnivores eating only meat. And then you've got omnivores. Those are the opportunists of the world. I would consider human beings omnivores because we'll eat both things, or we'll selectively choose one side or the other. But we can eat anything from either of those categories. And then you look at the plant world, and the plant world doesn't generally eat vegetable matter unless you're a parasite, a parasitic plant, and then you're living off the juices of another plant. So you get the parasite thing. But generally, plants produce their energy from photosynthesis, right? You got air and water and light, and it just makes energy, and it grows that way. It's literally sucking the energy from the earth. I mean, it's feeding off the earth. It's not getting its energy from anything else other than natural sources that are, they're organic, but it's just feeding off of substance. It's not really going out and hunting down or killing anything. It's not harvesting anything. It's just subsisting off of what's available. It's a fascinating thing. And you talk about, there's a plant out in, so I watched a PBS special once about amazing plants. It was probably a Nature episode, if I'm not mistaken. And I was fascinated by the idea that they had rewritten the science books on plants because they discovered a plant, and this was a tobacco plant. It's a wild tobacco plant. And this wild tobacco plant grows mostly in the desert Southwest. And this particular variety of wild tobacco plant is pollinated. The flowers come out on the plant, and it's pollinated generally at night. It's got a nighttime pollinator, so the cactus blooms in the dark, and it attracts things of the night. It only does this, though, however, when it used to be a daytime pollinator. And see, that's the trick. In its original state, this plant was a daytime pollinator and would be pollinated by moths. And so the moths would come along and they would pollinate the plant, and they were specifically trying to attract these moths with whatever pheromone it was using, whatever attractant it was pulling them in with. It was designed to get this particular moth. And the moth would come in and it would, do the pollination thing. But then it would do something that wasn't really good for the plant. It would go underneath the leaves and lay eggs. Now, the plant could sustain this, and it just could call it the cost of doing business, because those eggs are going to feed off the plant and turn into the grubs or the larvae of this moth, and then later, transform into other moths. But when it kills the tobacco plant before it can do any real seed work, before it can reproduce, so to speak, in an effective way, then the tobacco plant is dust. It was killed by its own host for pollination. And so when the tobacco plant starts to get to where it's going to be offed by the moths, it does something amazing. It changes its flower. It's a completely different flower. And at nighttime, now it attracts bats. So it's a daytime pollinator for the moths, or it's an evening pollinator for the moths. And then when that starts to kill the plant, it suddenly switches its flower. It blooms a new flower that's designed to attract bats in the night. And then it doesn't have the problem to exist with the moths anymore. And they're no longer laying eggs on all the leaves and thereby killing off the plant. So they'd never seen a plant that would completely change its flower. So there are amazing things hidden in the plant world that we've never seen before, so many plants have never been classified out there in the jungles as we're mowing them down and burning them, just cross-cutting and burning so that they can grow food. It's a terrible, terrible thing in the world where the moths and the butterflies are dying along with the bees and the frogs. I mean, these are the canaries in the coal mine. But as it relates to cannabis, look at what a wonderful thing it does when it's growing. I mean, you can plant several fields of cannabis, and it's a nitrogen fixator. I mean, the only other things that fixate nitrogen are legumes. I mean, this is an amazing thing. What a great restorative thing you can do for a field that's lain fallow, because it needs to regenerate so that you don't draw all the nutrients out in the next yield of your harvest. So you either let the field go fallow and let it regenerate, or you plant an alternative crop in there that's beneficial to the soil, and you still get another harvest. Hemp represents exactly that. It also filters out the air. I mean, it's collecting pollutants and entrapping them in the hemp fiber. I mean, this is all stuff that we should be seriously considering just from the standpoint of growing the plant. But that's not why I started telling you about the amazing qualities, the various and sundry properties of cannabis and hemp. When you talk about the medicinal effects and all of those things and the human endocannabinoid system, and then you talk about the various ways of ingesting and the benefits that are derived from each, because they're all extremely different from one another. And I'm talking cannabis as a dietary supplement, and you juice cannabis, you're getting so many things that I have no time to go into right now that you can't get from smoking it, vaporizing it, or eating it, which are all other ways of consuming this product, not to mention using it topically. I mean, it's only something as amazing as the cannabis plant that would be outlawed by a country that has been in cahoots with business for a very long time. Because as a natural answer to these common questions, medicine, fuel, paper, pulp, insulation. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I don't have enough fingers and toes to mention just the ones off the tip of the iceberg. I just don't. But if you've got something that's this useful, that's this purposeful, that has this many different properties, that is this variant, you've got something that is in the way of research and development for business, because there's a cheap, ready answer to this question already available. If you remove that, if you somehow expunge it, remove it, blank it out from history, now business can come in and say, hey, we got to create all this paper and pulp, and we got to do rayon and nylon, and we've got fossil fuels, and they can start making money from all this stuff. They're making plastic, and they're doing all this other business work in selling you products that either were synthetically generated or produced from other industries that wouldn't have that revenue line if cannabis and hemp were readily available. This is just simple historic fact I'm recounting for you. So I gotta tell you that as this issue moves on in the public face, the story gets wider, it gets bigger. I mean, Las Vegas. This may have some video attached. If it does, I'll play it for you if we've got enough time before the break, and I think we just barely do. There isn't. There's no video attached. But let me just read you the basis of this story. This is an Indian tribe in Las Vegas, the Paiute tribe. Already runs a smoke shop downtown and a golf course in the Northwest Valley. Now a third business venture. This is according to the Las Vegas Sun at LasVegasSun.com. Now a third business venture in medical marijuana is on the horizon. If construction goes as planned, the federally recognized tribe will open 2 medical marijuana dispensaries and a cultivation and production facility by the end of the year, said Benny Tso, chairman of the Las Vegas Paiute Council. The tribe has partnered with Ultra Health, an Arizona medical marijuana company, to develop and manage the business, he said. A groundbreaking ceremony Monday at the Las Vegas Paiute Indian Colony downtown capped more than a year of discussions with experts, lawyers, and government officials, and tours of out-of-state medical marijuana facilities, presumably in Colorado. We determined this is a viable and feasible opportunity of economic development for the tribe. And this is another attempt by the tribes, the Indians, the people who we pushed out, the native people of this country, to create our, highly touted democracy. Oh, nope. It's what is it? Oh, that's right. It's not exactly a democracy. It's a republic. It's a democratic republic. We pushed them out, and now they're coming back in to take control of the cannabis issue. Bully for them.
You're getting the full melt.
Promotional consideration provided by NoSmell.com, pioneering the storage market for cannabis users. The NoSmell patented bag technology offers users 100% smell-proof detection from even the most sophisticated of noses. NoSmell.com, so nobody knows. When placing your order for a no-smell bag, make sure to use discount code FULLMELT and take 10% off the entire order. Learn more about no-smell technology at nosmell.com.
Young students are our future. They're eager to learn, eager to succeed, eager to make the world a better place. And they want to make it to school safely. Share the road, take care when passing, and always leave 3 feet between you and people on bikes. Bikes are legal road vehicles. We're all drivers.
When you need legal help, you don't want to guess at who's standing next to you in court. And when it comes to a medical marijuana defense, it's even smarter to partner with a lawyer before you need one. Based in Royal Oak, David Rudoy has a proven history of not being afraid to take your case all the way to the Supreme Court and win. Find the law offices of Rudoy Law
at RudoyLaw.com.
RudoyLaw.com is a quick reference on your rights concerning Michigan medical marijuana
and up-to-date news.
That's RUDOI Law.com. Call 248-935-9074 now and talk about your legal needs, because at RudoyLaw.com, we don't just stand up for you, we stand up with you.
If you're like us, your pets aren't just animals. They're members of your family. Pet Pain CBD hemp oil drops are great for aging as well as active dogs and cats. Some people are apprehensive about hemp treatments for pets. They ask us, what are you smoking? Absolutely nothing, and neither will your pet. Like other hemp-based products for humans, the allure is all of the benefits of cannabis without any of the high. The CBD oil has shown to rejuvenate the bones, joints, brain, stomach, eyes, and heart. And the drops contain absolutely no corn, wheat, soy, artificial colors and flavors, or preservatives. Pick some up today. Visit petpain.com or ask for Pet Pain at your local pet store. Petpain.com. CBD relief for your pet.
Hey, it's Steve Green for the Sweet Leaf in Flint, because now getting safe access to medical cannabis patients in Flint, Michigan is never more welcoming. Presenting the Sweet Leaf, a brand new patient experience bringing 12 carefully selected caregivers housed in 9 separate offices to distinctly assist you with their knowledge and reputation for excellent patient care. Classes and training coming soon in the large community room. Check it out in person, 400 South Door Highway, or call 810-259-2571. The Sweet Leaf Center in Flint, 810-259-2571. 571. It's the Full Melt Radio Show. All right, so I just got breaking news that, as expected, Senator Bernie Sanders has taken his home state of Vermont away from Hillary Clinton for the presidential nomination. It's not big news. It's breaking news. It just happened. It was fully anticipated that would be the case. Look, we just talked about Vermont considering legalizing marijuana from a legislative standpoint. Louisiana is doing this now. I mean, this is, and the guys in Louisiana are like, look, we see the avalanche coming. We're just covering our heads now before it arrives. We're trying to brace ourselves so we don't get swept down the mountain by the coming cavalcade. It's just, it's amazing. I mean, it's going to be, when you've got a red state like this openly talking about this from a revenue standpoint and no longer using prohibitionist questions, I mean, they're still going to get batted about a little bit. But when it's no longer the big giant shield pushing back on this question, a big, huge spiked shield, by the way, and all those spikes, all of its ornamentation is all facade. It's all garbage. It's all just meant to scare you. It's like the coral snake. Well, it's like the imitator. It's like the corn snake, because the corn snake imitates the coral snake. The coral snake is deadly poisonous. You get bitten by a coral snake, and you're likely not going to have a very good time of things. You might even get killed. But it's one of the most toxic snakes in the ocean. But a very similarly colored snake. The corn snake. I think it's the corn snake. Is it the corn snake? What looks like the coral snake? See, now I'm confused. I got to look it up. Google knows the answer to everything. I swear it does. If Google says it, it must be true. So Google says a coral snake look alike. Do. King snake. The king snake is the one I'm thinking of. The king snake has got coloration that's almost exactly like the coral snake. But like I said, the coral, it's just imitating the coral snake because it wants all the living creatures around it to leave it alone because it's a harmless, defenseless snake. The only defense that it has is its coloration. Pretend that it's a coral snake. And so it's often been confused with the coral snake and left alone as a result by both animal and human alike. You know, you can tell the difference between the corn snake. I call it a corn snake. It's a king snake. The difference between a king snake and a coral snake, you know, you can tell the difference. It's in the way the colors are arranged next to each other because they're exactly the same colors, just different in arrangement. So it's the saying goes, red next to black is a friend of Jack. Red next to yellow will kill a fellow. You don't want the red next to yellow. That's bad. So it's easy to tell them apart once you remember the rhyme, the little memory mnemonic there. But if you don't, you see the red and the yellow and the black all banded on a snake. You better leave it alone. Don't touch that snake. I'm the kind of guy that will touch the snake. I'd be like, look, it's just a coral snake. Snakes don't scare me. I know how to control snakes. Once you know the trick to snakes, it's not scary to touch them. You still have to be very cautious because they will kill you if it's the wrong snake. I'm not afraid of them. You know what I was afraid of at some point? Cannabis. Oh, I don't know about that. It's easy to be afraid of what you don't know about. It's easy to, make it the boogeyman. Somebody else could say, hey, it's if you told a 2-year-old kid who's never had, sliced carrots. Kid's 2 and he's never had sliced carrots. He better have had carrots when he's a kid because, younger than that. Carrots are a common baby food. But let's just say he's never had sliced carrots. He or she's never had the delicacy of sliced carrots before them. Cooked sliced carrots. You could tell the kid, you could put him on his plate and tell him, oh, don't touch those carrots. Those are bad. Those are nasty. You don't want to eat those carrots. They're going to taste awful. And because the kid's afraid now, he's never going to touch carrots. Trust me. He will have a problem with carrots for a long time to come because you made him afraid of them. Same thing with the dark. It's easy to be afraid of the dark because there are things that you can't see. There are things that you are out of your control because you can't identify them. What you are unfamiliar with, it's easy to be made afraid of. Oh, what's there in the darkness? I know it's just the corner of the room. I know what this room looks like in the daylight. I know it's just the corner. But because it's dark now, I'm afraid. This is what people have done with cannabis. So I was afraid of cannabis at one time. Not afraid of that stupid corn snake or the coral snake. I'll pinch that coral snake down by his head and pick him right up. No problem. You got a bag for me to put him in because I don't want him to bite anybody. Animals of all... Tell you the meanest, most vicious, a dog will rip your face off. Big wolfy type dogs. I'm not afraid of them. I'm cautious around them. I pay attention to what's going on. I look for signals and cues. But I know how to keep one of these animals away from me or off of me. You get into a pack and it's another whole situation. We won't get into that. The point is that I'm not afraid of too much. But because I'm familiar with them. I understand it. Look, if you don't know how to catch the coral snake or any other snake for that matter, I don't care what kind of snake it is. It can be fast. The trick is you've got to be able to slow it down, corner it, and get a hold of it without getting bitten. Or in the case of a squeezy snake, getting squozed to death. I like my squeezy snakes. CNN says Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton will win their party's Tennessee and Alabama primaries, and Trump will win Massachusetts. Hang on, lost the notification. CNN projects. So that's in the and it says ABC News projects Clinton will win Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia, Virginia. Trump will win Alabama, Massachusetts, Tennessee, and Georgia. And that's how that's going down. And we already know that Sanders got Vermont, his home state. A poor guy. I'm going there again tomorrow. If you're in the area, I encourage you to be out at the Breslin Center tomorrow before 4 o'clock. There's going to be a long line out there, probably forming sometime before noon, because seats are first come, first serve. It doesn't matter if you made reservations or not. That's just so that they can get a count on how many people they think are going to be there. They might get reservations from twice as many people as the event will hold. It does not mean that you've got, hey, I've got a seat in here. I RSVP'd to the campaign. No, it's first come, first serve, and you're going to get turned away if you don't get out in line. So go out and get in line. I'm going to be out there working the line for MI Legalize, gathering signatures outside the Breslin Center for sure. And if I'm able to get some permission from the Sanders camp, being that I'm going to be volunteering for them as well, so that's I'm going to be out there even earlier. And I'll have Jace, the studio dog, with me from the studio dog docent. which is something else I do on the side, training the dogs. Those poor pit bulls, they get such a bad rap. I feel bad for them. They put more animals to sleep every year. Unwanted pets. These are animals we carved from the wolves of the world. These are animals that we bred into what we want them to be for either vanity or for work, or in some cases just companionship. But they live because we created them. They're, if you wanted to not care for dogs, you should have left them as wolves. Man should have left them as wolves because they can fend for themselves, and they work well together. They're a great top predator. But if you're going to breed them down into dependent animals, domestic animals, it's unfair that 30,000 of them a year get put to sleep just in this one variety alone. Until tomorrow, I'm Steve Green. We'll see you next time on The Full Melt Show.
The Full Melt Show is a production of TFM Media.